Okay, I think we're all ready. I think everyone's here that's going to be here. And thank you so much for spending your Sunday afternoon with us. I'm Deb Davis. I am the facilitator for the Space Coast International Association for Near-Death Experience. Um, I want to share this time with my co-founder, which was Lynn Grace. That is Janelle and Garrison's family member, but she was one of my best friends. We were just talking about her the other day, and I said, "Oh my goodness, her birthday's going to be in September." So, or September, we'll have to have a little cake and celebrate. Not that she was very good about her diet. She didn't eat cake like I do, but anyway, um, we'll have a little celebration for that. I have put out, I think everyone got this page, and these are kind of important things that I wanted you to know and take with you. But we do have a Space Coast YouTube page that Serena is getting all of our recordings up. And so if you miss a meeting, you can always go back to YouTube and check that meeting out. So we're doing really well on our YouTube. We're learning. We didn't know all the rules to YouTube, but we didn't know children couldn't be a part of our video. And my little granddaughter was here last month, and she helped Sandra pass out pictures and different things, and that was real fun for her. So thank you, Sandra, for letting her do that. But we had to do a lot of cutting and on that video to keep her out of that recording. So also we have a new email address for me if you're wanting to contact Space Coast Ions. It's deb@sciands.com. So I put that in there. Also, I want to really encourage everyone to go to ions.org. That's our international organization. Go there this month particularly, and if you join, you will be sent a commemorative cup because it's 75 years since Raymond Moody wrote the book Life After Life, and he's the one that coined the term near-death experience. And they're going to send you a cup, and then you get a little bit of a discount on the membership. And then you get a discount on the conference if you'd like to do the conference. That's on the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th of August. You can do it from home. You get a copy of it for 180 days. So even if you're not going to be available for that Labor Day weekend, which a lot of people, are doing things, you have that, and you can always go back and look at it. So Raymond Moody is going to be one of the featured speakers. I am so thrilled that I'm going to get to go this year. My daughter is going with me, which is another added bonus. She's getting more and more involved in spirituality. And so I'm so excited that she's going. Serena's going to be there doing some breakout sessions with meditation. So that's going to be fun to see her. Mark Anthony is a psychic. He has really 2 degrees, psychic. He's a judge and a doctor. He's going to be there. So I'm hoping one day we can have him speak here at our Space Coast Ions. So that's all real fun for me to see these local people part of the international. So I've given you a copy of that. If you don't have it, look around. Maybe someone does, and you can take a picture of it. I have one left. And then I have our calendar. If you don't have that, Sandra took a picture of it. That way you have it in your phone all the time. I thought that was a great idea. So we have a great group here today. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you on Zoom. So hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. It's so great to see you. And I'm going to get better about talking with you and including you and thanking you for being here. But we are so happy. The last 3 months, we've had someone local come in and we actually get to touch them. So we've had Lyman, then we had Sandra, and now we have Gerry. So our summer has just been so fun to have these people, what I call miracle people. They've been touched by God, by Jesus, and now they're in our presence. Now, how incredible is that? I just think that's incredible. And we get to learn so much from them. So we're excited to have Gerry here. I'm going to introduce him in just a minute, but I wanted to thank Helga. Are you here, Helga? Helma, I'm sorry, Helma. Helma has donated these nice little gifts for the participation award. So let's pull a ticket, and someone in this group will get a little gift, and Helma's done that for us. So 53604. 604. Look at the last 3 numbers. Everybody get out their glasses. Someone's got it. Oh, maybe Martha. Yeah. Martha is a winner a lot of times. 604. She won. Martha, she is so lucky, that girl. She is. Here you go. Thank you, Angie. She has won several times. She doesn't even have to be here and she wins. So she is here somewhere and she'll be right back. But anyway, we are so thankful that Helma has donated these little gifts. You won, Martha, again. Anyway, I was trying to do little things like candles and stuff, and I've learned so much in my lifetime. But one of the things I learned is I was giving away toxic candles, and I just felt so bad about that when I realized that so many of our candles, most of them, I guess, are toxic. And here I was giving you, for coming to our meetings, I was giving you a toxic candle. I hope you just used it as a decoration. And you didn't light it, because I've since learned that we should not be using those kinds of candles. They're not good for us to breathe. And of all people, I should know that because I had a lung condition. So I apologize for Martha. You probably won several candles. But those won't be candles that Helma has provided. And she's done the cute little bags too. I think those are so cute. So anyway, thank you. We could not do this group without you. And we're so happy that some of you travel 2 and 3 hours. Sandra and Gerry, they drive 45 minutes here. So we're just so thankful that so many of you are coming that far to meet up with us. So thanks again. All right. Let us now get to the best part. And I don't know that Gerry has actually spoken, have you, and told your story in front of a lot of people? No. So this is a perfect place because we hope to provide a loving and open-minded experience for Gerry to share his journey. He's had an incredible life journey, as we all have in many ways, but some of us got to leave here and then come back and be able to share that. So we're just so thankful that Gerry is going to that he's, first of all, that he's here. That's a miracle in itself. I always see these motorcyclists and I always think, oh my goodness, if they get hit, they're dead. But that is what happened to Gerry. But he didn't just die. He came back, and he has something very important to tell us, that Jesus actually asked him to. That's why I'm sending you back, Gerry. So I want you to listen to what he has, that key point. I had made little bracelets, that had the phrase that Jesus had given Gerry, and I'm going to have to give them to you next month because Amazon failed me. You know, you order things and the next day it's there, right? And this was the most important thing. And no, it's going to be in 10 days from here. So anyway, I was a little disappointed in Amazon for not shipping it immediately, but I guess they did have to take some time to, make these little bracelets and have this special saying on there. But I thought it was really important that we have it and that we wear it sometimes, take it with us or share it, give it to other people. So I will bring them next month when we have our next speaker. I want to tell you about him real quick before Gerry. His name is Dr. DeLong. He's Philip DeLong. He's been with us before. He came and he did the butterfly project. How many of you were here for that? That was really fun. It was an artistic, we painted and did a butterfly picture. And then what he did is he looked at it and took the colors and he used his mediumship to share what that meant, that your painting meant, because each one of them was very, very different. Even though we used the same paper, we used the same paint, we used the same technique. When we opened it up, it was very, very different. And he was able to share with his mediumship gift what it meant for each one of us. And so he's going to do a little bit of meditation, and then he's going to have that activity for us that's kind of hands-on. I thought that would be fun for the summer before we all go back into our school setting. No, I'm just kidding. None of us are doing that. But yeah, that's past us, isn't it? We don't have to get ready for fixing breakfasts for our kids, except maybe Janelle. You still have a school-age child. Okay, so it is now my pleasure, my honor, my privilege to introduce you to Gerry Fuchs. He's from Sebastian, and he's here with us to share his incredible story. And I'm going to switch places with him so that he has the camera in front of him. So we're going to take a minute. And
this is one of the things I'm breaking down.
We all are, Gerry.
Well,
I hate to tell you, but we all are.
Actually, I didn't walk with a crutch or a cane or anything until 2011. And as most of you know already, this accident happened 46 years ago this month. And I recovered, got to the point where, I can do this. And I am so honored to be with you folks today and that you invited me here. And I did not know anything about SCIANDS until last year when I met my co-sponsors, or my sponsors, they're my sponsors, Sandra and Robert. It just so happened that we met at a luncheon meeting and we started talking, and she said, well, have you had a near-death experience? And I said, well, yeah, I did. I said, but I call it an RD. I said, not an NDE. I said, I call it an RD because I'm recovering from death. And it's just been a great. Can I ask everybody in the crowd, how many teachers, or do we have any teachers in the crowd? No?
Me.
How about nurses?
Any nurses?
No nurses.
Someone's raising their hand on Zoom.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And hello to all you Zoom folks that are here. Obviously, I couldn't do this 46 years ago. I'd be Zooming from a hospital bed, and I was probably Zooming someplace else. But anyway, thank you, the Zoom callers that are here today. Appreciate it. And anyway, I've never done anything like this, to talk with you folks and to explain what I went through that day. I'll get right into the just they're the meat of the subject. And I was 29 years old. I love riding motorcycles since I've been 15. And it was a beautiful July day, middle of the afternoon or middle of the day. And I had to go into town. We had a little village. It was called Andover, New Jersey. Very interesting Revolutionary War town. But anyway, I had to run down there to make sure somebody was coming to repair my house that night because we were leaving for vacation that afternoon.
Now, you were married and had children already?
Yes, yes. And I don't know if I can get this or not, but that was my lovely wife. She was my wife for 44 years and a friend for 46 years. Unfortunately, she passed from pancreatic cancer in 2014, which I never thought would happen. To get an idea what kind of individual I was, that was me and my two sons. And obviously, I wasn't a law-abiding citizen. Let me put it that way. But then that day, on the way back from running my errand into town, I met Satan. And anybody wants to see what Satan looks like, that's him.
It might be a little hard to see for some of you, and I can pass that one around.
Okay.
If you want to explain it a little bit, it's the front end of a car.
Well, that's the car that got me. Satan drives a 1972 Chevy Nova Green. And that's a side view of it. Well, the young fellow that was driving it, I was 29. He was 23. And he told the state policeman that a bumblebee got in the car and he came into my lane. We were on a 2-lane road, Route 206 in New Jersey. Is anybody from New Jersey here? No. Well, it's just a 2-lane road, but speed limit's 40 miles an hour. So he was doing 40 and I was doing 40, and I never expected it to all of a sudden pop up in front of me. And he did, and I'll get into what happened then. The impact happened. Hitting that car sounded like I was in a metal crusher. When you put a car into a metal crusher, it gives out groans and moans and sounds terrible if you ever heard one, but I thought I was in a metal crusher for a split second. And that, yes, it is true. Time did slow down because for a brief instant, my left leg was trapped in between the bumper of the car and my motorcycle. There's a picture of the motorcycle. And on the table over there, I have the gas tank, and the impact pressure of everything left the texture of my blue jeans in the tank, in the paint. So it was a pretty severe impact. After the initial impact, I still had inertia value to me because I was quite large at the time. And I started to fly through the air with the greatest of ease. And I flew right by the driver's window. And we had a brief instant where I exchanged views with him. And I think I said a derogatory remark to him, but I don't really remember. I probably did, but anyway, I do remember landing on the ground like Superman would, put my hands out in front of me, put my head down. I did have a helmet on. and slid along the road. And I came to a stop in front of this company. It was a tractor. Where we lived was an urban, well, it was more rural. It wasn't urban. It was rural. We had more cows in the county than we had people. So where I landed was in front of this company called Andover Tractor. And I knew the mechanic that worked there, and he came running out to me. He was on the ambulance squad also. I was not, but Lindsay is his name. I believe he's still with us. He came running out and said, "Oh my goodness, Gerry." He said, "Don't move. Don't move." And I'm trying to get up. I said, "Lindsay, I can't get up." I said, I'm take a look at my motorcycle for me. I could see it down the road where, I came to a stop where the bike came to, with the car. The car was in the lane I had been in, but my motorcycle went into the lane that he had been in. So I'm laying there on the ground, and I said to Lindsay, I said, "Somebody's going to hit my motorcycle. I just finished rebuilding it," which I did 2 weeks prior. It was in great shape. So he says, "Don't worry about your motorcycle." I mean, it was pancaked. And he said, "Just don't move. Just don't move." He says, I got the corps coming, meaning the ambulance corps. And the siren went off because it was right down the road. And oh, what a terrible blare. I was right under, within 200 yards of the ambulance building, but it was the middle of the day and it was a volunteer organization. So it took everybody quite some time to get to the garage. So the last thing I remember saying is okay to Lindsay that I would, stop moving around trying to get up. Probably looked like a fish out of water, but that's when I left. And all of a sudden I was standing in not a vacuum, but it was and not a super bright light, but it was a very comfortable, warm, soothing light. And all of a sudden, two entities came up to me, and the one kept used my name, and she said, "Gerry," she said, "you got to come with me." I said, "I don't know who you are." She says, "You got to." Well, the other entity said, "No, I was sent here to get him." And she says, "Well, we both better do it because I could hear some outrageous noise in the background, kind of like a crowd type noise at Times Square on New Year's Eve." And the one entity that knew me, she said, "Well, let's get going." Pardon me. And she took me. She was my main guide, and the other entity was behind us. And all of a sudden, we get to this beautiful, beautiful white. I mean, this was the white light. It was a room. And there was the Lord sitting on his throne. Now, let me back up a little bit. I had a whole parochial education, but I did not know anything, double negatives. I didn't know anything about the book of life. Okay. My wife grew up knowing this, but at that point, she was the teacher of the Bible for me because I had dropped all my religious connections. And I'm not big on one being denominational. Matter of fact, if someone starts discussing denominations with me, I just say, "Well, tell me what denomination God is." And as soon as we can get that tuned in, we'll discuss that. But other than that, I don't think My personal feeling is I don't think God wants us to be so attached to denominations. The book is what I've learned now since in the last 46 years. The book is my guide. And whatever it says in the book is the way it is. I don't care if XYZ church says you got to do it this way or that way or the other way. No, I just do what the book says. So we get to what I would call the throne room. And here's God on the throne, but he's got this big book, and I had no idea what it was, but he's got it on his lap. And he's communicating with the entity that brought me. She's communicating with him. And he's flipping through the pages, and he's going through the pages, and he's got his finger just tracing, looked like tracing lines or names, if you want to, what I kind of think it was, because then all of a sudden he came to a spot. He kept flipping pages, and it only took a few seconds. And he came and stopped, and then he looked at me. He didn't say anything to me. And he looked at the entity, and she said, "Yes, this is Gerard Fuchs. That's my birth name, Gerard." And he acknowledged her. He acknowledged me. And then he got up and he grabbed me by this right arm, this right forearm. And I knew he wanted me to stand, or I was standing, but he wanted me to come with him. So we left the throne room. And back then I was going to, actually till today, these days, kind of, sort of, but not so much. But I was known for going as fast as I possibly can whenever I could. And I always made machinery go faster than what it was supposed to. But he had me by the right forearm, and we left. The entity stayed there. And when we left, we traveled at such a speed that was faster than light, faster than anything I will ever experience. If anybody ever watched the Star Trek television show, it shows where the spaceship Enterprise jumps to warp speed and all the stars just go, blinding light. It was faster than that. It was faster than that. We traveled for a little bit. I don't know how far. Time is not, there's no such thing as time when you cross over. No such thing. But we did travel for a good period of movement. And all of a sudden he stops. He's still holding on. He didn't never let go. I can still feel him holding his arm, just like a father would hold a child crossing the street. That's how he was hanging on to me. And he said to me, he pointed out through the whole horizon. And he said to me, "Show me the corners." And I looked, and I looked. And I knew it was the Lord. So I said, "Lord, I don't see any." He said, "No." He said, "You won't." He said, "We'll go back." He started going, we started going back. It took the same action or the same speed getting back to where we were, the throne room, we'll say. And he didn't say anything. We had no conversation. But when we got back, He sat back down on the throne. He had a conversation with the entity. And she said to me, Gerry, we got to go back. And I have a bad attitude. It was so beautiful and comfortable there. I said, I ain't going back. And she said, I think you better think again about this. You're going back. So I said to the Lord, I looked at him. He's sitting on the throne. I looked right at him and I said, why? Why do I have to go back there? Here was his message. He said, you got to go back to tell them to be better to one another. And I figured, well, I guess this is the good end of the deal because I'm not on fire or going into a dark spot. So I said, okay. And the entity guided me out. She guided me away out of the room. And as I'm leaving the room, he shouts at me again. I thought maybe, I ripped my blue jeans or something, but he shouts at me, oh, I love to hear the young children sing praise to my name. I said, got it. When you're with the Lord, there's nothing to debate. It's not, whatever. And my wife was so surprised because sometime later, and my wife was a true believer. And yes, she believed she had a very deep, deep spiritual side. But I would say a year later, she asked me, she said, you died and came back again, didn't you? And I said, yes, I did. And then that was the first one I ever explained this event to. And okay, so the entity's bringing me back. The entity couldn't go as fast as the Lord goes. I said, speed it up. She said, I'm going as fast as I can. And I guess the other way I explained to my wife, I explained the feeling of being in the atmosphere and in the presence of the Lord. If we could remember what it felt like to be in our mother's womb, that's what it felt like. It was warm. It was peaceful. And, even though my mother was an Irish person, but, she didn't start yelling at me till after she gave birth to me. But then on the way back, I did see myself laying there on the road, and I felt myself re-enter my body. And that was the most painful thing I've ever experienced, is re-entering my body. And I think you mothers, I got to give you so much credit. I think that's what you experienced in childbirth. God bless you. God bless you. Later on, a nurse said something to me about I had kidney stones. And actually, this was before the accident, but I passed them. And the nurse that was at the emergency room says, well, now you know what it's like to have a child. But so that was the beginning of my journey the last 46 years. And I'm super blessed to be here with you folks today. And I always thought if I told my story to other people, or other than my wife, like I said, she was very spiritual, and she told people I had the experience, and then they would ask me if they were at the house, and they would say, what was it like? And tell them just what I told you. And but I re-entered my body. I'm laying there in the prone position on my stomach, and by that time, all the ambulance crew were gathered around me, deciding what to do. Lindsay was still there, and I said, "Did anybody call my wife?" And Lindsay said, "Yeah, she's here." She came up. We lived about 2 miles away, and one of the neighbors watched the kids, and she came over. And my cousin, who I had just been talking with, he came over, and there was just so many people around. But I said to my cousin, I said, "My wallet's in my back pocket." I said, "Take the wallet out, give it, the ID and all that, insurance card." And he says, I gave it to Debbie. That was my wife's name. And that was my experience with the Lord. And if you'd like me to continue on, I, could continue on. And if there's any questions, please ask me a question. But I'm very blessed that I got the second chance.
Do you feel like you were seeing God as a person or a light?
I was seeing God as a person. So that, to me now, because I let the Bible rule my life. And when you see God as a person, that's Jesus. And I'm so happy I can say the word Jesus without getting politically ridiculed. I'm still not too friendly when people start hitting me with the political correctness garbage.
And when you said he took my arm, do you feel like that when you looked down you had an arm, or
Yes.
was it just a feeling of an arm?
No, it was my arm, and I could see him holding on, just like my father would grab my arm to cross the street, and he was making sure he held on because he was in charge of the speed. I had no idea. Nothing could ever travel that fast. I'm sure there was, I hate to use the word time, because like I said, when you cross over, there is no time. There is no time. And as far as telling time on your watch or looking at it, maybe there's no daylight, there's no dark. There just is. And but I really felt that was Jesus sitting there. But
so when you came back, is there anyone else have a
yes, ma'am,
question about that part? Right.
And to make sure I understand you, you're wanting to know how that the injury changed. It did change me, yes, for the better, a little bit, not a lot. But from that point on, they loaded me up onto what I would call the ambulance, meat wagon. That's what I say. I call it normal people say the ambulance, but I call it the meat wagon. But now I'm back being conscious. And nobody really knew that I left, later on. Matter of fact, a couple of years later, I went into Lindsay's shop and I asked him, and he said, "No, I wasn't aware that you had left your body." And I said, "Well, I did." He said, you didn't talk for a while. He said, and you weren't dead. He said, I know, you know. I said, what'd you do, kick me? He said, no. He said, but I don't think you were dead. He said, but he said, you were just quiet. He said, you didn't make any noise or make any movement. And
That was unusual for you, wasn't it, Gerry?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I was,
yourself back together physically and mentally after the accident.
Yeah.
It was a hard task. You were broken, badly broken. And it didn't make you an angry man. It made you a very softer man, I think.
well,
About that.
yes, it made me look at things a little bit different. I wasn't so impulsive. I had a terrible temper before. My sons say I'd still have a temper, but if they would learn to listen better, I wouldn't have the temper. No, they're good men. I'm blessed. I had a wonderful family, and now I'm blessed. I have a wonderful grandson. And but anyway, I'm back in my body, and the ambulance guys knew me. I didn't know them by their each name. Everything was, they were busy around me, and they said, Gerry, we're going to strap you to a backboard now. We got to straighten you out. Okay, I didn't know I was unstraight. I had no feeling. And they strapped me to the backboard. And this was the first, when they turned me over to put me in the ambulance, my wife was there. Fortunately, she was there. I thought I was going to go again because that was painful. That was excruciating. I didn't know it, but I had shattered my pelvis. I had shattered the vertebrae 3, 4, and 5 in S1. I said my whole pelvis was gone. My hips were, my one hip was shattered. The other one was blown out of the socket. And I was thinking later on, well, trying to get up, stand up to go get my motorcycle out of the road. What a dope. And my wife's there, and she says, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. And what a blessing. She was there, and she went with me all the way up to the hospital. It was about 8 miles away from where the accident happened. But each time it was an old, back in the day, New Jersey used to build their roads out of concrete squares, especially this one. And they had seams, you would hear the car hitting the seam. And normally you would drive over it. No, you would just know you're driving over the seam. Each time he hit the seam, I shouted out in pain. It was excruciating. And I had some choice names for all these people. I wanted to get flipped back. I said, can't you transport me on my stomach? No, we can't. I said, you blah, 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 blah. All kinds of expletives. And is there a mute button here?
No.
But so they got me up to the hospital, and here it was, just around 2:00. The accident happened just before noontime. So that's how long period of time was to go 8 miles and come back alive. And if you put a time measurement to it. So they get me up to the emergency room, and it was a small community hospital. And I always used to make the joke. I would say to my wife, if ever I catch my arm or something like that, or if something, a piece that breaks off the farm machinery, and you see blood, I said, take me up to the emergency room. I said, but don't leave me there. Take me down to the city, because we're up in the country. It was a small country hospital. That was a blessing, it being a small country hospital. Well, when an ambulance brings someone into the emergency room, I have a saying, and I call it, the patient is community property. So any doctors that are on call or working in the hospital have to come to the emergency room. And a whole bunch of doctors came. And they're all looking at me. And I'm thinking, my wife was in the medical field. My wife knew these people. She could communicate very well with them, but I couldn't. I basically told them all where to go. And like I think I had started to say in the beginning, this was the first day of my vacation, 2-week vacation. So in back of my head, I'm thinking, hey, fix me up in 2 weeks and get me the hell out of here. I said, and the one doctor looked at me and said, no, you can't be fixed up in 2 weeks. Little did I know nothing about medical stuff. I didn't back then. And so the doctors, or each different doctor had their opinion what they wanted to do. And some doctors wanted to perform major surgery on me, put pins down my hips and my legs, and my left lung was compromised, but fortunately I was never a smoker. So the left lung kind of held up under what it went through. And when I went forward, naturally I went forward on my chest, and they saw a bruised rib. They said I didn't break any ribs, but I had bruised ribs. But my left lung was acting up and not responding to treatment. No big deal. And did I tell you about the priest that was there? Did I mention that at the accident scene? That's what I was talking with Mike before. Well, in our town, we had a couple Catholic organizations, and most of them knew me because they had farm equipment and stuff, and they would bring it into where I worked, and I'd work on their farm equipment. And so this one Catholic priest, and I can't remember his name right now, but he came up to me and he says, I'm Father so-and-so. I said, yeah, I know. I said, from Don Bosco. He said, yeah. I said, you guys bring your stuff down to my shop. I said, when the summertime, when farm time, baling hay and stuff. He says, well, that's brother so-and-so that brings. I said, yeah. I said, but I know of you guys up there, And he said, I'm going to give you the last rites. Now, this is after I came back from being with God. So guess what? What this priest said didn't matter. So I said, that's okay, Father. I'm fine. I got it. Don't need it. He said, well, I think I better give them to you. I said, well, Father, I said, okay, fine. So he gave me the last rites on the road when I was laying there before they put me in the ambulance. Well, they took me up to the hospital, Newton, New Jersey. And like I said, all the doctors, started getting opinions on me and what to do and what to analyze and x-ray and scopes and everything. And then because I had such a vile mouth on me, I was not friendly to any of them. They put me to sleep. And they kept me sedated, or if you want to call it, in a coma. I guess I was in the coma for about 7 days. And my wife, the blessing that she was talking with the doctor. And one of the orthopedic doctors came up to her and said, Debbie, there's other doctors that have different opinions on how they want to treat Gerry, but I don't want to put him through the trauma of surgery too much surgery. I got to repair his leg, but I can't see putting him through the surgery for his hips and his pelvis. I don't think he would pull through. I don't think he would make it. And he said, Debbie, I would like you to make the determination of what doctors you would like to take charge of it. So she said, well, you doctor, and his name, God bless him, he was a great guy. And he was a biker too. He rode Harleys. And Dr. Duckman looked like the janitor. He didn't look like a doctor. So he was one of the good old boys to me. I listened to him. I'm not the ones that listen to corporate opinions and this, that, and the other thing. Just get to do the job and get it done. The nurses were great because the nurses, the head nurse of intensive care unit, she was wonderful. She knew how to treat these cases that came in. And anyway, so my wife appointed Dr. Duckman in charge of me. Very fortunate that that happened because I don't think I would have survived the surgeries. And so that was the beginning of the long road. I spent over 3 months in the hospital. And at least 2 of those months I was in traction. And I had they could not put a cast on my left leg because it was damaged too much, but they had to put it in traction. They had some kind of what they called a boot, and they put the leg that they could attach the traction to. Pardon me. And then with my other leg, my right leg, Dr. Duckman put a pin through that and then hooked up the traction to the pin. And that was holding, pulling my hips back together, everything. I always used to use the phrase, they put Humpty Dumpty back together again when he fell off the wall. So Dr. Duckman put me back together. And then later on, he explained to me why he did that. He said, your bones could heal a lot quicker on their own rather than me taking everything apart and pinning everything back together. So naturally, because I got a terrible sense of humor, I said, don't you have any crazy glue? Back then, that was everything was a fix. I could fix anything with duct tape, crazy glue, and WD-40.
Still can, right?
I try. I'm as I'm getting older though. I'm not losing I still understand that wheels are round. I make the joke that I was in the transition from square wheels to round wheels because my kids say that I'm so old. And anyhow, it's been a long journey, but a blessed journey because, and then actually another time they had me on the operating table that day when they took me in. And I think it was Dr. Duckman. Yeah, it had to be him because he was putting my leg back together. My left leg was smashed right below the kneecap. The only thing that was holding the leg on was the ligament. That's the only thing that was holding it. So he had a lot of work to do. He worked on me for a few hours. And, but during that surgery, my left lung went out and I started to leave again. I knew I was leaving, but I did fight it. And an entity did come to pick me up. And I said, that's okay. That's okay. I got it. I'm not going. I'm here. So they left. I don't know who it was, the male, female, or anybody. And now I believe more in angels because of Sandra and my wife. Sandra's a believer, and my wife, we had a house. I still have angels from my wife collecting angels. And she just made me understand the difference between angels being created by God for a special purpose. And the entities that came to me were put in place. That was their job for the day or whatever, to go get this guy. And that was interesting. And it's still interesting because I'm able to understand all three aspects of God. And not because I was taught that way. It was because I experienced it that way. All three aspects of God are God the Father, the Creator, that we're taught about in the Bible, in Genesis. Then, who was I standing in front of was Jesus Christ, because it was a person. And then there's the Holy Spirit who's in this room big time right now, because he's with everybody. He's with all of you. And, you know, you're included, you know, and I'm included, fortunately.
Thank you for including me, Gerry.
Well, no, the Lord included, you know, just the Holy Spirit's within me. And the reason, and yes, God does have a sense of humor. He does. In 2006, I started riding motorcycles. Well, I kept riding motorcycles, but then because of buying a house and I needed the money from a motorcycle I had built, and it was rare. It was a collector item, yada, yada, yada. And guys wanted to buy it from me, and I needed a bulldozer really bad to build the house. So I made a deal to sell the last riding motorcycle that I had, and that I had put together after the accident using some of the parts, very few, but mostly the back end of the wrecked motorcycle. But in 2006, I sold the one in the 80s for the bulldozer, and then I didn't ride much anymore. I would still repair motorcycles and fix them for people, and then, you know, take them for a test ride and stuff. But, you know, it wasn't my thing. There was other priorities. There was, you know, raising the kids and the growing of the family. But then in 2006, we were living down here. We moved down here in 2001 to Sebastian. And in 2006, my oldest son and his wife, they had their own motorcycles. And I decided, well, there was a store up here, Harley Davidson, Pineda, that rented motorcycles. And my youngest son was coming down from Pennsylvania. So I called him. I said, why don't you and I rent motorcycles? I says, and then we'll all go for a big motorcycle excursion. And my wife was kind of leery about it because I hadn't ridden in quite some time. But I rented it, and we went for a wonderful ride, the whole Thanksgiving weekend, great time. And well, the salesman, naturally, they honed in on, yeah, I did like the motorcycle and stuff. He talked my wife into buying the motorcycle for me, or letting, you know, or my wife came up to me and she said, would you like to buy that motorcycle? I said, well, I never thought about it, but yeah, you know. She said, well, why don't we buy it? I said, we got toys, you know. She had a sports car. I said, don't you like the car? She said, I'd rather be riding with you on the motorcycle. I said, okay. So we started riding again. And I was a rider, if you want to call it that, until last month. And last month, I gave my grandson my motorcycle. He's in the Army, and he's in the 82nd Airborne.
Gerry, tell them about where your wife's ashes are. Tell them where your wife's ashes are in that.
Well, after 2006 and buying this brand new motor, which I never had a new motor, never had a new motor. Yes, I'm sorry. Way back in 71 when we got married, I had bought a brand new Triumph motorcycle to take a trip with her. We were trying to have children, and we weren't having children. My wife was very devoted worker to her job. She worked in a bank. I had a repair business, a gas station. Actually, I had two of them. But all we did was work. And we really didn't take any time after our honeymoon to take a vacation. So I said, I'll buy a Triumph. They were special, blah, blah, blah. And so I went and got a new Triumph. And we were going to take a ride to Texas to see my cousin in Dallas. And these were our plans for the summer to do that. So she had made the time, got okay from the bank to take the time off, 2 weeks. And I think it was not even a month after I got the motorcycle. That's when she got pregnant with our first son. So because I'm such a wise ass, excuse the French, but my mother-in-law and my mother were always dead set against us to having any kind of fun. So my mother-in-law said, well, I guess you'll have to sell that motorcycle now. I said, no way. I'm going to buy a sidecar. And I would have if my wife wanted. She said no, she wanted to ride with me, but we did not go, being that it was the doctor. But that was then Sandra just asked me. I think I expressed that I lost my wife in 2014 from cancer. But we had always talked, as time was going by. And every Mother's Day to actually the year after she passed, I still did it. Every Mother's Day, we would go up to what they call the Charahola Trail. It's an old Indian trail that goes between North Carolina and Tennessee. And it's beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I got to preempt it a little bit because my wife was part American Indian. And anything Indian, American Indian, we always had to go see, pay attention. And I think that's why it was a big part of her makeup was that she was part Indian. Her stoic qualities. I never let her drink whiskey except once. Don't Indians shouldn't drink whiskey. But no, she was a wonderful, wonderful woman. And so we would talk about when we passed on, what we would want done. We both wanted to be cremated. And she said, well, when you cremate me, I says, I'm not going to cremate you. You're going to cremate me first. She says, well, I'll tell the boys, when you cremate me, I want my ashes put out over this mountainside up in the Charahola Trail. Beautiful, 4,600 feet. I should have brought those, but somebody made me like, what do they call a shadow box of all the pictures from that trip when a whole bunch of people came with me to put her ashes out. And that was a blessing. And one of my wife's favorite songs was Red Solo Cup. I think it was Toby Keith that sang it. Well, anyway, after she passed, I had her cremated, took her ashes up to the Charahola Trail, and there's this turn off little picnic area where we used to go all the time just to relax and enjoy our vacation and have a picnic. but I picked that place to put her ashes out. Well, that's like the middle of May, Mother's Day, around the middle of May. I think it was the 14th that year. And we were up so high in the mountains that there weren't leaves on the trees yet because it was still cool up there. But you could see down in the valley, there was leaves on all the trees and everything, how green it was. And all the people that accompanied me on the trip, the last trip up there, I had put the urn or the bag, or the container with the bag in it. And I got these little red Solo cups, and they all knew my wife. She loved country line dancing, anything country. So I said, if anybody would like to, I said, dip into her ashes. I says, and spread them out over the mountain. And that's what she would enjoy. That's what she would like. So like I was saying, there's nothing growing because it's still cold up there in the mountain. Later on that year, that same year, it's actually September, just after Labor Day, my youngest son was taking a trip down here to see me. And I kind of figured he would make a side trip to see his mother, talk with his mother, where we put the ashes out. Well, he called me. This is the one that's technically savvy. And he's got all this fancy equipment. He's got a I call it paranoia camera. What do they call it? Panoramic camera. You can see, I always get it wrong, but so he's got one of them. He calls me up on his phone. He said, Dad, he says, I have my panoramic camera. He says, I'm going to take a film of the mountain where we put Mom's ashes out. I said, okay. He said, can you see it? I said, yeah, I can see it. He says, well, here it goes. So he starts filming the whole mountainside where we put these ashes out. The whole mountainside was covered in lavender. My wife's favorite flower was lavender. There was always lavender around the house. You know, up home, she saw a lavender tree. We didn't have any when we built the house. She made me go get this piece of this lavender tree, and I planted it. It took off, it grew. But it was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. So that was her sign to me. She's fine. And yes, I went to grief counseling because this is still tough. This is still tough. Yes, ma'am. The entities that were with me, this was maybe 2 years later. And I did not know the one that was behind me, but the one that called me by my name, Gerry. All of a sudden, the lights went on one night. I woke up out of a dead sleep. And I woke my wife up. I said, Deb, you awake? And I woke her up. She said, yeah. I said, I just realized who I saw, who came to get me that day of the accident. She said, really? I said, yeah, you don't know her. I said, but I said, it was Grandma Lynch. Now, Grandma Lynch was not my immediate grandmother. Grandma Lynch was the grandmother of my cousins that we would always go over their house, my paternal cousins. And it was my uncle's mother-in-law. She was Grandma Lynch. And I would always do it. Both my sister and I would always make sure we said and talked with Grandma Lynch because we considered her part of the family. Well, she was the lady the one entity that I recognized that day, that immediate day. There are entities that talk to me once in a while. I hate to admit it, but one of them was the chief of police from my town. But him and I were good friends, Mike, and he passed a few years ago. And oh my goodness, he still gives me a hard time. But I think I started to talk about riding a motorcycle again, getting back on this other motorcycle. And naturally, I wasn't satisfied the way Harley Davidson made it. So I had to I had to do adaptations to the engine and made it go a lot faster. But I was blessed that my wife had no apprehension to it. She actually gave me the money to do it as a Christmas present. But then she wanted me to buy a new motorcycle, a bigger one, and the real big cruisers. This was a big bite, but it wasn't what we call a cruiser. But she said, why don't we just buy a cruiser? I said, nah, I can't get them things to go this fast. And I had modified this one also for her because it didn't have a very comfortable seat on it. So I got the seat that was appropriate so that we could take long trips. We used to go down to Key West quite often, North Carolina, and she knew I was the type of rider. I wouldn't stop till I needed gas. And one time I caught her. I said, you're going to sleep on the back of this, aren't you? Naturally, I can't see behind. I said, you're going to sleep. She said, no, I'm not sleeping. I'm not sleeping. So one time I had to hit the brake a little bit suddenly, and I was going rapid rate of speed on Route 95. And zoom, she crashed into me. Her helmet hit mine, and she pushed me forward. And when we stopped for gas, and I said, you were asleep, weren't you? She said, yeah, but that woke me up. And we had a wonderful life. Some people say, oh, you had a difficult life. And we were rich, we were poor. We were rich, we were poor. It didn't matter. None of that matters at all. Because both of us together were able to separate the materialistic world from the spiritual world. And that made the difference. The Lord put us together, my wife and I. If you ever wanted me to explain everything, and you could come and visit me or ask me whatever, I would show pictures of our wedding. Back in the 1980s, there was a film made by this crazy producer. White was his name. He's a young man. I want to say Kenny White, but it wasn't. His last name was White. He made the movie Clerks, and he also made this movie called Dogma, where he elaborated on the way I feel about dogmas, And I don't have a negative opinion against him, but I don't think that that's the opinion. I think the Bible is all we need. That's our guidebook. And if it says so in the Bible, it's so. If it says not so in the Bible, it's not so. I'm sorry. Both my wife and I agreed on that. And we had many good religious leaders that understood us, and most of them respected us for it, where we came from. But getting back to the entity type of thing, and most of the time this would be when I was alone on the motorcycle. Naturally, I would go at a very rapid rate. And at that point, I would acknowledge the third person of the Trinity and say, okay, Holy Spirit, let's do it. Keep up with this. No offense, the Holy Spirit would pass me up. So I definitely know that the Holy Spirit can do more than 114 miles an hour. That's what I clocked him at the last time I saw him. But he left me in the dust. So,
Gerry,
yes,
get back to the accident and everything.
yes.
When you first hit the vehicle and everything, I'm sure you felt excruciating pain on those things, no? When you were with the entity, did you feel any pain?
None.
None?
Oh, that was perfect peace.
When did you start feeling pain?
When I got back into my body, when I was put back into my body, and I slammed into it, and it felt like, yeah, that was a head-on accident. You know, that was when I first felt pain. But during the accident, and the accident felt like they all say, you know, it was slow motion, and I could hear the sounds of being in a crusher. It sounded like the car was being crushed, but that was me crushing the car.
What was your relationship with the man that hit you? Did you ever
None,
see him afterward? No.
none. I knew who he was naturally, but I thought that he would probably contact my wife, children. He was 23 years old. We were in our late 20s. I was 29. And I was very surprised, though. He never made any effort to contact us. And
Well, as I was saying to Gerry when he mentioned that part, I said a lot of times you're advised by your attorney not to reach out to the individual, but I know that there could be some closure and some forgiveness if we were allowed to do that, or if we didn't listen to our attorney and we just did it. We just said, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. And
the way I always look at things in life is if the shoe was on the other foot. If that had been me that had hit somebody, yeah, I'd be at that guy's house cutting his lawn. And, you know, we used to heat our house with wood, so I was always chopping wood. And which was a blessing. People came over to help me and do our farm, but my wife did the majority of the farm work. We had cows, we had chickens, and you know, she sold the eggs and got the two little children. The children were young at the time. She had a huge garden, huge garden. We had it plowed. We had a farmer with a big deep plow and 5-row plow. He plowed the garden, and she would take care of that by hand. And then during the harvest, she would put up all the tomatoes, corn, anything, pickles, anything that she grew in the garden, she would put up for the winter. And I have an inside story about that, but anyway, it had nothing to do with anything, just that I got a stubborn head, and I walked out and quit a good job. Got
so
home.
then you were able to walk after
Mhm.
3 or 4 months.
I walked out of the hospital.
You walked out of the hospital,
I was on crutches.
crutches. And then would you say you regained full physical walking and everything until?
In that newspaper article, I did explain to the people, and I let them write that article. I wasn't too fond of going public with all this, but I let them write that article. It was a local newspaper, the New Jersey Herald, but because of the hospital being able to do what they did with me, you know, I call myself a professional crash dummy, and they rebuilt me. You know, they got me back walking. And at the end of that article, it says, the only thing I can't do, except for now, and since 2011, the only thing I couldn't do was run. I couldn't run a full gait, you know, break out and run down the street, run down the road. But my oldest son said that he was going to take advantage of it. And he was naturally a teenager, and he said he was going to get to the truck and take the truck before I ever got to it. I would never get out there to you know, stop him. Back then, in those days, we would leave the keys in the vehicles. And he said, I'll get to the truck before you do, Dad. I said, you don't want to bet on that, do you? Well, and this hurt my heart. What happened? It was an accident. He said he could get there. I said, well, go for it. And we're sitting, all the events that in our house, them growing up and everything took place at the kitchen table. That was where our lives were lived, discussing and talking grades. And oh my goodness, the youngest son, he had to go through Spanish Inquisition when the report cards came out. But anyway, here the oldest son was challenging me and says, I'll get out there before you get out there. And I says, look, I says, I'm looking at the front door from my chair at the kitchen table. I said, you have to get up from your chair, turn around and go for the front door. I said, I will be there before you get there. He said, no way. No way. So he made his move. I said, go ahead and move. So he made his move, and sure enough, I jumped up. I beat him. We both got there at the same time.
Library.
I reached out and grabbed him, but I grabbed him by the back of the collar. And as I did, he lost balance and fell backwards. And he hit his head right on the step going out. He didn't, but it was traumatic to me. I thought he had hurt himself, but he didn't. His mother naturally attended to him. He wasn't cut or damaged or anything, but he got up and he took the truck anyway. But we had a interesting life, and I'm blessed that I have the two boys. They were huge around the farm and always doing the work, reluctantly kind of, and especially in their teenage years. And the oldest one gravitated to aviation. He became a pilot. He had his pilot's license before he had his driver's license. He did it all on his own. Today, he's in the aviation business he's a final flight inspector for Sikorsky helicopter. And my youngest one, he always used to do stereo installations using my tools, my garage, which was underneath my bedroom, our bed, my wife and I. So whenever he would install a stereo, they would blare it, turn it up as loud as they could. And naturally, it would be late at night or early in the morning, and it would wake me up, and I wouldn't be too happy. And but that's what he liked to do. It was his thing, what he liked to do. And today he does fiber optic installation and design up in Pennsylvania. So I have two very accomplished men who did it on their own. Their mother and I supported them as much as we possibly could. And but I'm very, very proud of both of them. And now I'm super proud of my grandson, who's protecting us all in the 82nd Airborne. But any other questions?
Gerry, you mentioned the throne room and then going from there, God taking you and you going through the star field and stuff. How many other buildings or rooms did you see? Did you see many or?
No, that as far as like constructed issues, that was it. And it was made out of the most beautiful, what I would call the whitest marble. I could tell it was marble, but it was the whitest and clearest marble I have ever seen in my life. Well, it wasn't my life because I was with him and it was his house. But that was the only physical place. The other parts, when we stopped and he said, show me the corners of the universe, and there aren't any. That was his point. The universe is unlimited. It goes on and on and on. But guess who's in charge of it all? He is. So he knows what's there. He wasn't going to take me on the really good cooks tour, you know, pay as you go or whatever. But he took me on the real quick tour, that's for sure. That's, honest to goodness, that's the fastest I ever travel. I'll experience as far as motion and moving. But I think we were actually going through eons. If you want to put it to a time thing, we were probably traveling through eons. And then he said, where are the corners? There aren't any. There aren't any. Lord, I did say Lord. I've really realized that I better talk right to this guy, you know. But again, he's got me back here. And the purpose was tell everybody that they got to be better to be better to one another. To be better to one another. And then shouting at me. He likes to hear little children sing praise to his name. And it's very strange, but about around 2016, I ran across this wonderful, wonderful vocal group from Africa. The tribe is called the Amani tribe. If you ever have it, they do come up to Melbourne to hold concerts, and they sing just as good, better than the Vienna Boys Choir, which is also, I was always a fan of the New Year's Day celebration in Vienna. I always wanted to take my grandmother there and do the Strauss waltz with her, but maybe next time. Next time. But any other questions? How about you folks on, I keep going to say YouTube, but it's Zoom. Any questions from our Zoom followers? And I do appreciate you listening.
See if there. Anyone have a question? I guess not.
No
Well,
question.
we are so glad that you were able to share this.
Thank you.
And we're so glad that God sent you back. And that
I'm
you
happy
found a
to,
purpose and you raised your boys and had a wonderful marriage. And
if anybody has any questions they want to ask in private, by all
I
means.
think Jerry,
You know,
did
if
you
we-
provide the email? Did you say you?
Oh,
wanted-
no, I do have an email address if you wanted to contact me. Motorcycle related, but it's JDRIDESAFE at Comcast.net.
What does that stand for?
JD Ride Safe.
Good.
Although-
Ride safe.
Although I go like a bat out of hell.
Well, I guess, you know, if you've died once and been returned, you realize that people don't really die and stay in heaven until it's their time.
Till it's your time.
And if it's not your time, you're going to be sent back. I find that very, very interesting that we can look at our lives like that. If we thought of that when we're first born and we lived like that, would we not live differently? I'm thinking that we would
Yes.
be braver, have more courage, more confidence, and we would live more purposeful lives.
Well, and
if we-
I think on that, I think if people had more respect for the Creator,
True. That's it.
and I've been told many, 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 many times that I'm a control freak. Well, yeah, those folks aren't wrong that have told me that, but I know the supreme control freak, and I'm not in control by no means. And neither was my mother, but I think my mother found that out by now. My mother left this world some time ago, and a quick note, I kid about my mother. I had a wonderful family. I had one wonderful sibling who raised me. I blame her. She's responsible for the way that I am, but it's a good thing. And, my mother, I always say, is like the mother that was on the sitcom, Everybody Loves Raymond. His mother was exactly like my mother, or vice versa.
Anyone remember her name? What was her name?
I looked it up and her name was Doris Roberts,
Yeah. Doris
her
Roberts.
real name, but I don't remember what Peter Boyle used to call her. We gotta go.
Yeah, well, we do have to get ready to leave. We need to be out of here by 4:45. But we're so glad you came. Again, come next, our meeting is August the 25th on a Sunday. So we'll have Dr. Philip DeLong here. Thank you again, Gerry.
Oh, thank you for having
Be
me.
safe.
Thank you. I'm humbled. I'm humbled.
Thank you, Gerry.
Thank you for watching. Appreciate it.